When Lana returns home from her homecoming, we see a man up in the tree next to her house using a camera recorder. When she enters her bedroom, she finds a small gift on her bed. As she opens it, butterflies fly out, but this is being recorded by the strange man. He then drives off. When he returns home, he finds that his mother is upset since she found his recordings. She questions him where he was. He says he was collecting insects, but she doesn't like it and is concerned. The mother says that she will call the military academy, but he's concerned about his bugs. He has an obsession with bugs and his bedroom is full of them. He has some flying green shining bugs in jars and drives off with them. But he hits something on the way and the bugs get out. They then attack him and he crashes. We then hear him shouting. The next morning his mother is knocking at his door. When she enters, she finds that his room is empty. As she leaves, we find him above the door on the ceiling looking infected. We then see a bird's eye view of some farmlands and we enter Lana's bedroom. We see Clark hovering over Lana. She looks at him and says it's all his fault. As his mom calls him, Clark wakes up and crashes his bed. Clark goes to the farm's market with his parents and friends. Lana says she didn't see him at the dance last night, but he says he was kind of tied up as he looks at Whitney. As Clark leaves for something, Whitney approaches him and says that last night was just a joke and he needs his necklace back. Clark tells him to look for it in the cornfield. As Lana is looking at some butterflies, she's approached by the young man who was stalking her. She knows him from school. His name is Greg. He then starts talking about butterflies. He asks Lana if she can help him with his lit paper after school. She agrees to meet him in the library. Whitney calls him Bug Boy and tells him not to tell his girlfriend. Whitney says if he finds out that he left the butterflies at Lana's, he'll find out. At this point, Whitney, Clark and the Bug Boy are in love with Lana Lang. As Clark's staring at Lana, he's approached by Lex and asks him about being tied up last night, but Clark says he doesn't want to think about it anymore. Lex also shakes hands with Jonathan. Whitney is driving his truck and we see the Bug Boy climb up a tree. As he approaches, he jumps his car and then starts wrecking his roof. The car then stumbles and Whitney is unconscious. However, the Kents just arrive in time and Clark protects Whitney during an explosion. We see that Clark is unharmed. At the farm, Jonathan says Whitney doesn't remember what happened except that his truck got smashed. Jonathan also says that his mom is proud of him. Clark says when he woke up he was floating and doesn't know what's happening and he wants it to stop. His dad says he doesn't have the answers but tells him to have faith and that they'll figure it out together, but Clark says he's scared. Back at the Luthor's mansion, we see that Lex has the green necklace which he puts in a small box. Lana Lang is seen horse riding. When she gets back to the barn, we find Lex there. He says he's a friend of her aunt. He then sees a picture of a necklace and asks about it. She says that Whitney has it. Lex then mentions Clark saved him and goes on speaking about if she's even with the right guy. He tells Lana to ask Whitney what he was doing before the big game. When Greg's mom returns, there seems to be a smell in the house and she sees that it's 103 degrees Fahrenheit. She calls out to Greg. There are some dirty handprints on the walls and his bedroom is full of spiderwebs. She says what's wrong with him. He speaks about intelligence and instinct, that it can't be stopped. He says he'll eat, molt and then mate. She says he needs help, but he stops her from leaving and then kills her. Clark's at Lex's mansion to drop off some produce. Lex tries to persuade Clark to fight for Lana, but Clark is insecure. Lex then hands him the green necklace, but Clark becomes uncomfortable, but when the box is closed, he gets better. Lex says it's a lead box made from the armor of St. George. He hands it to Clark and tells him to give it to Lana to win her over. When Whitney is in school, Lana asks him where he was before the game, if he tied up Clark in the field. He says it was just a prank. She asks for her necklace, but he says he lost it, so she's upset. After that, Greg says he waited for Lana for an hour, but she says something important came up. As she leaves, he grabs her and says if she's blowing him off because of her boyfriend. She says that she needs to go to see Clark. Greg's jealous and angry about this. At the farm, Clark opens the box and his hand is affected and he's in pain. As he sees Lana in his barn, he hides the box. Lana says his mom let her in and she loves the place. Clark says his dad built it and he calls it the Fortress of Solitude. She says she found out what Whitney did and apologizes, and that Clark even saved his life. But Clark says she shouldn't be the one to apologize. She says she's happy Lex told her about it. He asks her what she'll do, but she replies that she doesn't know, as Whitney even lost her necklace, as it's made from the fragment of a meteor that killed her parents. It's a gift from Nell when she adopted her. Clark wants to give it back, but it physically hurts him to be around the meteor stone. We then see the Bug Boy shedding his skin. As Jonathan and Clark are in the barn, Clark hears some bug noises and is suddenly attacked by Greg. When Jonathan comes up, he tells that someone's here. As they're looking, Jonathan's attacked and pushed over. As he's about to fall on some saws, Clark catches him. Greg gets away. Clark says he recognizes him and doesn't know what has happened to him. Clark says that all the weird things that have happened in Smallville is all his fault, but Jonathan says that it's Luthor Corp's fault. Clark says that he killed Lana's parents. Jonathan says he can't blame himself as he didn't have control over it. He tells him he can't change it and has to accept it, as that's what makes him a human. Clark and Chloe look up some information about Greg. They discuss how his meteor-infected bugs could have bitten him. They go to Greg's house and talk about how they used to know Greg before his parents divorced. Pete says they had a nice treehouse. Chloe opens the window and they enter the house. They find it to be dirty, and they also see the footage of Lana playing on the television. Clark finds Greg's dead mother. Whitney and Lana are talking at her barn. Greg comes and wants to claim Lana for mating. He pushes away Whitney. When Whitney comes back to his senses, he tells Clark that Greg took Lana to the woods. Clark says he knows where he went, and he gives Whitney instructions to a tree fort. Clark then runs to the tree fort and finds Lana captured. Greg tells him to get away and says that he'll do as he pleases. He pushes Clark out and he then runs off to an old factory. When Clark enters, there are meteor stones there and he becomes weak. Greg hits Clark with a tube and Clark has difficulty moving due to the meteor stones. He then throws Clark. When Clark hides behind a piece of metal, he gets better since it's made out of lead. Clark then throws him around. As the bug boy wants to get up, he pulls a chain, but this causes him to be squashed by a large object. We then see a bunch of bugs getting away. Whitney arrives and gets Lana out. When Clark arrives, he sees them together, and this is another unlucky moment for Clark. Later that night, Clark grabs the box and wants to return the necklace. As Lana comes out, he runs away, but she finds her necklace around the doorknob and is delighted.